because I'm talking about something that the media just chooses to ignore. The legacy media doesn't want to talk much about what happened in Israel on October 7th. They want to talk about what's happened since then. They want to talk about what's happening in Gaza. And I get that to a degree because, look, I don't like to see anybody losing their life in a war or in any other situation. And of course, I care about the loss of life in the Gaza Strip. I do. There's no but to that. But means forget what I just said. I'm going to tell you what I really think. So there's no but to that. I care very much about the loss of life among the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Of course, no one likes to see children die in a bombing or in any kind of act of war. What I'm talking about is the fact that there just doesn't seem to be anyone that wants to talk very much about the continued attack and calling for the demise of Israel. And it goes very much beyond just the attack of Israel because it's an attack against Jews around the world.
An Applebee's in Miamisburg was defaced with a swastika and messages like F Jews.
A group of men in a few cars jumped out of their cars and asked the patrons who of them were Jews. The witness says 2 patrons said they were Jews, and protesters started to beat them.
I'm smiling and I'm happy. I'm elated. It's a day of courage.
If you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking down at some notes that I made concerning an event that I was involved in last night. It was the Jerusalem Post event concerning Zaka. And that is an organization that has a value that they express as Chesed Shel Emes. The translation, true kindness. And this includes honoring the deceased through dignified treatment of remains. Now, Zaka is Israel's rescue and recovery nonprofit. They have over 3,000 volunteers, mostly Orthodox Jews that are ready 24/7 to respond to any disaster. And they were the first to respond to October 7th. Let me tell you what they did. They performed the grim task of collecting body parts. And you don't want to talk to them about this was just all made up. You don't want to talk to them about the fact that this is just all some fiction that the Israelis made up or blew out of proportion to get sympathy around the world and justify an attack on Gaza. You don't want to say that to them because they were there and they had to collect these body parts. Now, why do they do that? Jewish law. Bodies must be buried as wholly as possible, making every shard of bone precious to Zaka, because it's Jewish law. They do this after every traffic accident. They do it after anything that impacts a human body. And they do it after a terror attack, murder, suicide, natural disaster. And they do it with the authorization of the Israeli police. They collect blood and body parts at the scene to preserve the dignity of the departed. They do the same for non-Jewish, even suicide bombers that come into Israel and blow someplace up. They will collect the body parts of the offending suicide bomber and return it to the home country of the offending suicide bomber, because that's who they are. They preserve the dignity of the departed. Now, another value from the Talmud, Jewish scripture, if you save one life, you save the world. Now, Zaka has air units, jet ski units, dive units, K9 units, and it's not just for Israel. In 2004, they raced to Thailand, Sri Lanka, India, and Indonesia after the Indian Ocean earthquake. In 2010, to Haiti for the earthquake. A 6-man Zaka search and rescue unit among the first to arrive. Immediately rescued 8 students trapped under the rubble at Port-au-Prince University. In Japan, In March of 11, Zaka search and rescue after the earthquake and subsequent tsunami. 2015, Nepal for the earthquake. 2023, the Turkey earthquake. That's who these people are. And even offered assistance to Syria, an enemy country. Now they refused, but nonetheless, they offered. And I'll promise you, you won't read anything about this in the legacy media today. But I'm talking about it because I was there. I spoke at the event and I questioned some of the Zaka volunteers about what this had done to them to spend their lives looking at these kind of tragic situations. And, I asked them how it affected their view of humanity. And it was interesting that across the board, they said it really affected their ability to look their own families, their own children in the eye.
I couldn't look at a child in his face, any child, because we saw what those children suffered and how they were attacked.
And I said, tell me why that is. And they said, because they just felt guilty. They said, we are so blessed and we've seen so much carnage and so much loss of life and so much pain and suffering. And then we go home and get to sit on a couch and hold our children in our arms and talk to them and have a meal with them and tuck them in at night. And it just doesn't seem like we've done enough. I said, but you've spent days and sometimes weeks or months at the scene of a tragedy like the Nova Music Festival, where the attack was made early in the morning, gathering body parts and putting them together for family. And that was such a gift to these families. They said, we know, but it's just hard. It's hard to unsee the things that we've seen, and it's hard to shake it off, and you just can't help but ask yourself, why me? Why am I spared this? And I guess the answer I gave was, so you can be here to do what you do. And one of the questions I got was, how do Israelis deal with the post-traumatic stress disorder that the whole country lives under? And it occurred to me that there's nothing post about the stress disorder that they deal with, the trauma. There's nothing post about it because they live with it every single day. We get up and go to work every day. We go to the park and play with our kids. We go to the store and come home. And we don't think about somebody lobbing missiles at us in Nebraska or Texas or Wisconsin or California or New York. They live with that every day. And because it's ongoing, it's not post. It's current. But yet they still are so resilient. They just keep going to school, taking their kids to do the things that they do. But it has to take a toll. And I respect their ability to get up every day and at least go through the motions of a life. And I pray to God that this conflict ends for Israel, for Palestine, and that peace settles on this region. And I thank God for Zaka, these caring and giving volunteers that I'll bet you didn't even know existed. And that's the real story. Wherever you're getting the real story, make sure you subscribe and follow.